Hi, my name is Rob and I'm part of Global Leadership Initiatives. We exist to develop excellence in leadership globally. And as part of that vision statement, part of that mandate, we, together with the University of Ontario Institute of Technology's Management Development Centre, have developed this certificate in visionary leadership. It arises from our book, Visionary Leadership in a Turbulent World, Thriving in the New VUCA Context. And I'm here to introduce this online certificate to you and tell you a little bit more about where the certificate will take you. And so it's comprised of 5 modules. The first module, this one that you're looking at now, talks about understanding VUCA and VUCA Prime. The second module looks at leadership resilience in a VUCA world. How do leaders and leadership survive and thrive in a world that's very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous? We need to develop strategies of resilience. And so the second module by Dr. Jennifer Moss-Breen of Crichton University looks at that issue. Our third module is developed by Dr. Bettina van Stam, and that looks at innovation in a VUCA world. So instead of allowing VUCA simply to crush us, to press us down, Dr. van Stam looks at ways that you can develop as an organization and innovate new products by experimentation at the margins and by other factors. She'll take you through that. And then our fourth module is with Dr. Noel Pierce, and that looks at change management in a VUCA world. As we think about enacting our vision, which is part of the antidote to volatility, how do we take the people we're leading and move them through the change that's needed to accomplish the outcomes of innovation in a VUCA world? And so Dr. Pierce will take you through that. And then the final module, it looks at strategic systems coaching. So as we try to norm and align the entire organization to respond effectively and in an agile way to VUCA, we need systems coaching. And so Madeline van der Steeg will take you through that and help you with that. And so I want to mention again that this certificate is built on our book, Visionary Leadership in a Turbulent World. The book is embedded in the LMS for you, and so you can access it by clicking on the link. Each participant has their own particular link that takes them to the book, and so that book is available. I encourage you to read all 9 chapters, but specifically the 5 chapters that deal with the topics of this certificate. As I mentioned, we're very excited about this course on visionary leadership in a VUCA world. There are 6 key course outcomes. You can have a look at those, but 2 that I just want to highlight is that by the end of this course, you will understand VUCA and VUCA Prime, and you'll be able to apply those 2 acronyms to effective function in your organization. When we think about leadership, we take Northhouse's definition. We know there are 403 definitions of leadership that are out there, but I really like this definition. When we think about visionary leadership in a VUCA world, we say that leadership is a process by which an individual affects or influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. That's a great definition of leadership. It's influencing people. It's not command, it's not control, but it's influence. And how do we develop influence as leaders? Well, I think it's really important to know that people follow us by choice. Followers follow leaders or leadership by choice. It's not coercive. And that arises because we develop competence, the knowledge, we develop credibility, good decision making, and we show character, ethics, and good function in our organization. And those 3 components, competence, character, and credibility, impact the way in which we're able to influence the people in our organization. So when you think about VUCA, we need to show competence in a VUCA world. We need to show that we're competent in how we address, both in terms of our mindset and our skill set, the realities and the challenges that VUCA brings. We also want to develop credibility by showing good decision-making processes, by leveraging big data in the process of understanding, which is part of VUCA Prime, and by making good decisions, by leveraging agility through collaborative decision-making. All of those realities and those factors in decision-making build credibility with those whom we lead. And then finally, character is the ability within a context of ambiguity to again make wise decisions, good decisions that are contextually viable but that bring about no harm. And so those are really important. That leads, of course, to leadership with influence. When we think about VUCA and we think about leadership, competence, character, credibility, influencing people to lead them, we need to understand that in any leadership context, there are three elements, three dynamics at play. The first is the context. Context determines leadership. I often say to people, Mahatma Gandhi and his principle of satyagraha would never have been as effective as he was were it not for the British Empire's colonization of India and his bid to free the Indian people. And so the context determined and empowered Gandhi's leadership. I think of my own president, Madiba, President Nelson Mandela, and the fact that often if I say to people, if apartheid had not existed, and apartheid was wrong and bad, and we totally acknowledge that, but President Mandela would never have been the leader he was were it not for his struggle against apartheid and his competence, character, and credibility in how he led the followers in that context. And so context is really important. People can be great leaders in one context, but poor leaders in another context. We think of Winston Churchill, who was a great wartime leader, but really struggled as a leader in peace times. And so you now are in a context of VUCA, and VUCA determines your leadership capacity, your leadership capability. And this online certificate is designed to help you address that context in meaningful ways so that you can leverage that context for effective leadership. The second dimension that, of course, affects leadership is that of followers. How do followers allow leaders to lead? Keith Grint, a very famous leadership author, said, "Great children make great parents, just as great followers develop great leaders." And I think that's true. Followers, if they trust your competence, your character, and your credibility, are going to give you space to lead in a VUCA context. And then the third dimension of good leadership, of course, is the leader himself or herself and how you lead. And we speak now about leader as human capital, but leadership as social capital. And how does the leadership of an organization, the emergent and the assigned leadership, how does that collective social group of leadership function in this context in a way that the followers feel confident to follow in a VUCA context? And so I want you to think about those things now as we look at VUCA. VUCA is a term that was coined by the American military in the 1990s to describe the new theater of war. It's been co-opted by business writers in 2000 and beyond, and it speaks of volatility, this increasing rate of change that we see in our world today. It's not just that there's change, but change is so rapid, so fast. That's because of technology, it's because of globalization, it's because of so many factors. So we live in a highly volatile world. There's also tremendous uncertainty. We used to think in terms of a 5-year strategic plan. We no longer think in those terms. We now talk about strategic thinking and strategic alliance because 5 years is too long a projection in an uncertain world. We cannot predict effectively what's going to happen many times beyond the next 6 months. And then there's great complexity. There is a multiplicity of decision factors. Whenever we make a decision, we have to consider our stakeholders, which are multifarious. The environment is a stakeholder. The government is a stakeholder. The employees are a stakeholder. Communities are a stakeholder. There are so many factors to think about in decision making. We also need to think about the fact that what's ethical is not always legal, and what is legal is not always ethical. And contextually, what may be good in one context is not necessarily good or right in another context. And so it becomes very complex when we're making decisions. And we have to think systemically and strategically as we make those decisions. And so we're hoping that this certificate will help equip you to address complexity in decision making. And then this notion of ambiguity. Often we need to realize that there actually may be no right answer. And so sometimes we have to choose between good and best. And so we're hoping that this will also equip you to do that in a more meaningful way as you enter. One of the powerful antidotes to the impact of VUCA upon our organizations is VUCA Prime: vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. Vision, of course, we know is a picture of a desired future state. This is where we as an organization are heading. The world will be different because our organization accomplished these outcomes. That's our vision. That keeps us on track. We then also need to countermand uncertainty with understanding. And understanding is the ability to stop, to look, to listen, and to understand the factors that are at play. And that's where big data can be tremendously helpful to us as we begin to look at the weak signals that are off in the distance, as big data begins to feed information through to us. And we're able to interpret that information, we gain understanding. And so we can make good decisions because we're thinking systemically and we're alert to things that are threats, factors that are threats to our organization, and also factors that are opportunities for our organization because of what the big data is uncovering. We then need clarity in our organization, and a great statement is that clarity trumps complexity every time, even if you're clearly wrong. So be clearly right. A great example of this that I often share with my students is the statement by Donald Trump in his election campaign, "Let's make America great again." And when I share that with the students, of course, they grimace, but then I ask them, what was Hillary Clinton's slogan? And none of them are able to articulate her slogan. She lacked clarity in a time of great complexity, and it was Trump's clarity that outweighed her capacity, amongst other things, to win that election. And so we realize that clarity trumps complexity, and so we need, from our understanding, from our vision, to be able to clearly articulate our perspectives, what we're doing, and where we're going. And so we need to make sense of the chaos with clarity. Of course, people will follow us when they see that we are clear on who we are and where we're going. Finally, to countermand ambiguity, we need agility. And agility, as well, is fed by big data, but it's also this collaborative approach to decision making. And as Tungu says, big data democratizes the organization because, as Vardaman says, now leadership can emerge from strange places at strange times in amazing ways. And so we look for leadership within our organization that's social capital, that's leveraged because people feel confident as they're reading big data, as they're interpreting the big data, as they're on the front lines engaging the realities of VUCA, that they're able to bring that information back to the leadership and with the leadership to make good decisions. And so we need agility, the ability to move quickly as we read clearly the signals that are coming from our understanding that keep us on track with our vision, that we're able to say, we can do this, we need to move in this direction because we understand what's going on, and that information is fed through and we're working collaboratively. The other thing we want to highlight in all of this is Grin's taxonomy of problems. And when you think about VUCA and you think about the problems that surface in VUCA, we used to work in a stable world and a strategic world with critical problems, and there command and control was adequate. As leaders, our job was to provide answers. And so often it would be many times perceived even as coercive or physical. And there are situations where leaders cannot be collaborative. We think of nurses in a ward, or we think of police officers arriving at a bank robbery. Those are not the moments where people need to sit down and now collaborate on what's the best approach. There's standard operating procedure. They deploy, they order, they say, you there, you do this, you cover that. And there is a sense of control, and it needs to be, as they deal with that critical problem. But as we move through the taxonomy of problems, we see that there are these tame problems. And those are problems that are complex, often systemic. And so management's role, leadership's role then in all of that is simply to organize processes that can address those tame problems. And we see that many times. It's very calculative, it's very rational. This is the problem, this is the cost-benefit analysis, this is how we're going to approach it. Here are the processes to address that, the budget, the staffing. And so it's much different to what we're facing today, which are these wicked problems, in which leadership now has the role of asking questions. It was Albert Einstein who said, if I have an hour to solve a problem, give me 50 minutes to ask the right question, and I'll need the final 10 minutes to solve that problem. And so today, as we face wicked problems are problems that surface that really don't have any obvious solution. That's VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. We need leaders and leadership that is asking questions. And again, that's where big data becomes so helpful to us and relevant to us as we seek to ask these important questions, and an increasing requirement for collaborative compliance. Well, finally, as we think of VUCA, I want you to picture your organization as a complex adaptive system, as a living organism. Complex because it's made up of many parts, adaptive because it's continually changing to the environment, and a system because systems are designed to accomplish a specific purpose. And your organization was designed to accomplish a purpose. That's your vision in the midst of VUCA. When you think of an organization, it's bounded by policy, bureaucracy, and administration. That's the shell that protects both those externally and internally in the organization. We then notice that we have followers who at any moment themselves can emerge as leaders, especially as they leverage big data. We also have leadership, which is the social capital. And you'll notice where we've placed the leader in the organization, not at the forefront, but at the center, because the leader is no longer the heroic solver of all problems, but now you have leadership. And leadership, as I said, can emerge from anywhere at any time due to the impact of big data and agile decision making. We then also have this notion of experimentation at the margins, where we do not mainstream our innovations, but we test them first. And we have rapid reflection forces, which are reading the weak data off in the distance, weak signals, to help us understand the challenges that are coming down the pike. Well, you're going to drill down on all of these elements that we've highlighted: VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity; VUCA prime, the antidote: vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. Our expert authors and expert consultants are going to take you through how to leverage VUCA using VUCA prime through those 4 modules that we've highlighted. If you have any questions, concerns, ideas, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at rob@globalleader.ca. Thank you for participating in this certificate. We think it will be of great benefit to you and your organization.